So Boris Johnson has carried out a number of different large and small U-turns during this pandemic. But this particular U-turn has to be the most callous yet. So Boris Johnson was invited to meet with members of a group that represent victims or families of victims of the pandemic. And he initially had said yes he would, and then he changed his mind. So let's look at this Sky News report on this particular issue.
Boris Johnson has said he won't meet a group of families who've just lost loved ones to COVID-19 after days after agreeing that he would speak to them. Well, here's what the Prime Minister said last week following a fifth letter from the group COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice.
I'm not aware of those letters, but of course we'll write back to everybody, every letter we get. Of course I'll meet anybody, the people who've, the bereaved who suffer from COVID. Of course I'll do that.
But then, in a letter sent this weekend, Mr Johnson said, as much as I would wish to be able to offer my condolences in person to all those who have suffered loss, that is regrettably not possible, and so I am unable to meet with you and members of Bereaved Families for Justice.
So Boris Johnson has once again demonstrated that he is incapable of running the country. He's not capable of actually being Prime Minister. Now, this was highlighted in Parliament today, where Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Labour Party, challenged Boris Johnson on this particular issue, how he was saying that he would meet with members of this group and then decided not to. Now, my initial response to this news was, well, perhaps, okay, Boris said, look, for security reasons, I can't meet with these people. That's a pile of crap as well, because Keir Starmer himself met with these people. He's the leader of the opposition. He's a senior politician. He met with these people. So there is no security issue here. And this is just, once again, Boris Johnson making a fool of himself. He probably responded off the cuff. He probably responded not thinking about how his answer would actually have an impact. You know, he was asked, he was not prepared, and then he decided to do a U-turn. Oh, actually, I shouldn't have said I'll meet with these people. So why did he not meet with these people? What was his decision? What was his real decision? What was behind his real decision? I think he didn't want to meet with them because they would ask him difficult questions. They would ask him, why did the NHS not have sufficient PPE? Why did members of our families die? Are you going to take responsibility for those deaths? Of course, Boris Johnson would never take responsibility for anything, least alone the deaths of other people. You know, difficult questions that the journalists ask, but Boris Johnson is able to ignore or to respond with some ridiculous slogan. That's okay for the journalists, but you can't use that method when you're dealing with members of the public. We've seen it on numerous occasions how Boris Johnson will avoid meeting with members of the public as much as possible. During the flooding, he waited until almost a week or 2 weeks after the flooding took place to go and meet with members of the public. Actually, let me correct myself. I think it was, but it was numbers of days after. Instead of going there on day 1 or day 2 or when it happened, he waited and waited and waited, and he was forced out to meet with members of the public. Why? Because he's not good at connecting with ordinary people. He pretends, and people within the media pretend that he's good at connecting with ordinary people, but he's not. And his buffoonery is okay with members of the press. They laugh it off. But he can't use that tactic. And I have said before, this is a tactic of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is not a buffoon. He pretends to be a buffoon. Because, like the way he ruffles his hair and acts like a bit of an idiot, this gives him cover to avoid scrutiny over serious issues. You know, Theresa May was criticized and scrutinized to a much higher standard than Boris Johnson. Why? Because Boris Johnson is the lovable fool. Now, the lovable fool is okay when you're talking about Brexit, although I don't think so, but for most people that's okay. But when you're talking about family members losing loved ones, ruffling your hair and using some empty slogans won't cut it. And Boris Johnson knows that, so that's why he avoids meeting members of the public. Now, I think it's, once again, a demonstration of Boris Johnson's lack of leadership here. Boris Johnson is not capable of running the UK. He's not capable of being Prime Minister. The fact that Keir Starmer met with these people, and I'm not the biggest fan of Keir Starmer, but the fact that he met with these people demonstrates that he is head and shoulders above Boris Johnson when it comes to leadership. Anyone, in a sense, is head and shoulders above Boris Johnson when it comes to leadership. It is quite sad that he is basically ignoring these people or throwing them under a bus, because these people have suffered a great deal. They want answers. They want to know whether there was a possibility to avoid these deaths. And instead of Boris Johnson being humble and meeting with these people and apologizing for the mistakes that the government has made, he'll just ignore them and hope that this will blow over. Now, thankfully, Keir Starmer challenged the Prime Minister about this today, and he's not allowing it to blow over. But we'll see how this generally develops. But I think this is once again a demonstration that Boris Johnson is an empty suit. Boris Johnson is not the lovable buffoon that many people think he is. He's a cold-hearted Tory. He doesn't care about other people. He cares about himself. And he will do whatever it takes to protect himself, and an extension of that, protect the party. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?